Hey y'all, welcome back to Kirby's training series. I'm gonna ask y'all to please ignore the fact that I am covered in alfalfa dust from feeding hay to the horses. So on this day I started working on some haltering practice with Kirby so that I could be able to take his halter off and on. And I'll show you how I do it, and I use a second halter because it just makes it a lot easier for me. That way I can practice putting the halter on and off, and I can also figure out what Kirby's preferred method of haltering is. Because he's not afraid of things going over his ears, he seemed to like this method a lot, so this is what I practice with him, where I just put the string of the halter over his ears the same way I would if I were to put a nylon or leather halter on him. He's still a bit sensitive, he was a bit nervous and jumpy for this, but he started to gain some confidence by the end of this brief session of haltering. The goal for this couple of days was to work on his domestic horse skills to make him nice and easy to handle on the ground. Next, I wanted to give him a refresher on picking up his feet. I have been doing this at the start of our sessions as it's one of the things I do to warm up his brain, but I hadn't always been filming it, so I wanted to show y'all where he was at with his hoof handling skills. He was being a bit funny with this front foot. I'm not sure if maybe there was a fly on him and that was bothering him because he was normally a little better and less unsure about holding up his foot. But I just held it until he relaxed, and then I tried again to help him have a better experience with it, and he was much better that time, so maybe there was a fly bothering him. For this front foot, he kept anticipating picking it up before my hand had reached all the way down his leg, and while sometimes I'll let that slide in the beginning if I'm just trying to build confidence, I wanted to be able to reach all the way down his leg. I need to be able to touch down his leg without him thinking he always needs to pick it up the minute my hand goes down there. So I worked on it a little bit, and in the end I decided that I needed to go back to working on it with a rope a little bit later. And so I did end up just catching his leg and holding it as he was already picking it up. But that's something that I made a note of that he would need some work on because I didn't want to create too much frustration. He's clearly trying to offer me the answer he thinks is right, and I want to encourage his try at this point. So I took that because that was a little better. He picked it up a little slower, and I moved on for now. For the hind feet, I hadn't gotten to picking them up with my hand for the first time yet. I was still using the rope to bridge the gap for him, as I wanted him to have good experiences, and so I tried to break it down for him every time, and very soon I'd be able to just go in there and pick it up with my hand without any prep work beforehand. You can see it didn't take much, just a little bit of reminding him what the feeling of something around his pastern applying pressure is like and what he's supposed to do, as just a precaution because I am always cautious about teaching horses to have their back feet handled. And then I was able to pick it up with my hand with the rope still on. He did super well. I feel like this is a very unique struggle for Mustang trainers, but trying to get the rope over and around the fluffy feathers of Mustangs' fetlocks is pretty difficult, actually. His hoof handling skills were really coming along. I was just taking it slow, doing a little bit each day, and he was really progressing with that. So that was all I had time for on day 8, and I don't think that I was able to work with him on day 9 because I have no videos. So on day 10, we picked up working in the smaller pen, and I took the opportunity to work on our unhaltering and rehaltering. So this was the first time I'd taken this halter off him, and I just was able to really slowly put it back on him. Unfortunately, my phone fell there, but Megan was kind enough to pick it up for me. So I moved my phone to a location where it's less likely to fall and started working on some body control with Kirby. I started refining our sending cues, which is basically when I send him out on a lunge circle. I wanted to define the shoulder control part of that, as I think it's a really important part of lunging and also helps teach the horse some body control that they're going to need under saddle. I then just did a bit of desensitizing to the stick and string and asked him to yield his hindquarters. This was the first time I'd asked him to do this while stationary, but his innate understanding of body language, as well as the cues that I've used while lunging him, helped him understand this really well. I always touch him at the end of the stick so that he doesn't think that something touching him immediately means he's supposed to move away from it. Only when I apply other cues and use it with intention do I want him to move. He understands how to move his head to the side off the halter pressure, and he has a vague understanding of moving his shoulders away from pressure because of the work that I did on sending him. And so teaching him to move his shoulders over in sort of a pivot was really easy. I just asked him for a couple steps at a time and tried to get that leg that's closest to the stick to cross over in front of the other leg, as that creates a correct pivot. I didn't end up getting him to cross over in front on this attempt, but he was giving me a really good try, so I let him stop and rest because I didn't want to make him frustrated by continuing to ask him when he was technically doing most of what I wanted. And this is exactly what I was looking for, shoulder movement without him moving backwards. And then I wanted to ask him to back up for the first time. This was something that I hadn't really prepared him for, so I just wanted to see if he could understand that pressure, and I was using my hand on his chest to kind of help him understand a little bit, and he started to pick it up, At first he was a bit confused, and then he realized pretty quickly what I was asking him to do. So I had him walk a little lap around and try it again. Sometimes when you move them around and then ask them to do the same thing again, they're like, wait, actually, I forgot. And that's kind of what Kirby did, but with the pressure of my hand on his chest, I was able to help explain it to him. I was still just releasing for one step at a time so I could make it extremely clear to him what I was asking, and he ended up giving me a really good attempt. I ended the session there. It was a really good start to learning some of the basic groundwork and body control that he's going to need under saddle and just being handled on the ground. Thank y'all so much for watching. Stay tuned for future videos, and please consider leaving a comment and subscribing if you enjoyed the video. I'd love to hear your thoughts and what you want to see more of.